months. There are literally hundreds of grant programs in New South Wales for small business. And there are literally hundreds in Queensland, there's hundreds in WA, and there's hundreds run by the federal government. The trick is to know which one applies for you, which one you're eligible for, and how do you actually get your hands on it. Danielle's title is listen to this, Entrepreneur in Residence at the University of New South Wales.
My job was to come in and figure out how to bridge the gap between government, university and business owners. And that's something that we've done pretty well. So we've got 60 partnerships that we've built in the last 2 years between business owners just like yourselves and researchers at the university. And the funding comes 50% from the business, but also 50% from the government. And I get to do that approvals process. So I understand what business owners are trying to achieve, and just like Prosper or just like Judo, I can have a real conversation with you about exactly what it is that you want to get out of the research project, and then help translate that across to the researchers and make sure they deliver what you need and that it's tied to real commercial milestones. And then we can get that happening for you in as little as a couple of weeks. Yeah.
So some good examples, and the important part about that, if I understand you correctly, is it's matching for funding, but it's also matching to a university academic.
Yep.
So an expert in that particular area, whether it's LiDAR or whether it's drone technology, whatever it might be, will match you with the academic from the university who works on the project with the business to get the commercial outcome. So it's partly about money, which is always good, but it's also partly about expertise that most businesses don't have internally from the university. And it's not all just University of New South Wales, it's
any university has the ability.
I might just introduce Marcus Webb. So Marcus is from BSI Grants, and we have a joint venture with Marcus to run grants through Mentored as well, because we were getting so many questions and requests for help in how do we get a grant, what grant do I get, how do I do it. You specialise in a couple of specific areas. Do you want to just give us a little overview of those and sort of what they are and how they work?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Craig. I guess we focus predominantly in the area of the research and development tax incentive in the first instance. We then move through things like export market development grants and the accelerating commercialisation program, which Danielle would be familiar with. And that sort of builds on, I guess, some of those smaller level grants to get people going. We work more with have got an idea and they're up to their next piece, the next big bet, if you like, whether that's the R&D bet, whether that's the commercialisation of the new product and getting that out into the local market, into the international market. And so those are our three real core offerings. Having said that, we work in things like Jobs for New South Wales, there's minimum viable product grants, there are grants through CSIRO, through the Kickstart program. There's a range of other grants for that sort of ideas or ideation or seeding, project seeding piece. If anyone's in defence, there are significant grants in that area. It's very much to work with clients to say, what is your project? What's the beginning and middle and the end look like of this particular piece you're about to do? What does your funding look like? What's your contribution? Where is the rest coming from? And then on the back of that, we help them plug the gaps such that they can be competitive against a government grant and the guidelines for that program. So we've been doing that for 20 years successfully.
A couple of examples, recent examples?
Well, my favourite one at the moment, I've got two. My favourite one is we just got over $700,000 for a gentleman who invented a solar-powered level crossing system. So he can put in a fully active level crossing in the most remote location in the country for 1/5 of the price of a typical active level crossing. And so the ARTC is all over that technology, which is wonderful to see. Australian Rail Track Corporation. My apologies, I live in Auckland. And the other one that we've recently also done, again, sort of circa $700,000, through an accelerating commercialisation grant, was some collaborative virtual reality technology, which had been developed out of a production house that was doing advertisements and just straight post-production sort of stuff. And they started playing with some VR tech and they hired a couple of people, and before they knew it, they had the ability to put 25 school students into one piece of VR content. So they could all collaborate around, say, the model of a cell or a map and actively interact with one another in that virtual space. which has created a whole heap of really interesting stuff for them. They're now up to 100 participants, and they're looking at universities, they're looking at augmented reality and the possibilities there. So, yeah, that's...
Are there questions around grants and people are all going, how do I get one? Is that the first question? Mark, you've got one down the front here.
It's a very simple question. What the heck's happening with the R&D grants that the government has been giving the money out and then coming back and wanting the money back? There's been some horrendous stories in recent months.
There has been some horrendous stories, and there are some, you know, without naming names or trying to be too controversial, there are some horrendous behaviours on both sides of the fence. Okay, there are some people who've taken advantage of the fact that this is a program that is self-assessment, meaning if you go home tonight and you magic up an R&D claim and you put that in, and you make the declarations as the taxpayer that you've done all the right things, there's a 1 in 6 chance no one's going to look at that again. But some people have taken that and done absolutely the wrong thing. Unfortunately, in the startup space, in that early stage, we need money at all costs. Just pay it back if we get it wrong. The regulatory response to that has been, one, let's try and scare everybody away from the program at that bottom end where we don't have the resources to audit them effectively. But two, let's get really tough on software, which is 60+% of our claims at the moment. So that's why you're seeing the war stories in the market at the moment. It's the most important thing I say to my clients all the time. If you do your research and you know that you're doing a systematic program of work that is out in front of the technology in the space that you work in, you will be fine, as long as you keep some records. The number of people we see who spend significant money, particularly in software, but in other fields as well, significant money on experimental research and development, but don't keep a note. Don't keep a post-it note or a photo of a whiteboard is astounding. So that's my message on that piece. Ivan's got one.
I've got one. What about small businesses who are looking to export and are spending money on travel or marketing costs?
Sure. So can I just have a show of hands? Who's aware of the Export Market Development Grant Program? Okay, so only a couple. The government provides a grant for Australian companies that are seeking to open up new overseas markets for their locally developed products. Okay, they provide 8 grants, and they provide an incentive of up to 50% of eligible overseas marketing expenditure. So, Ivan, to your point, the short version is if you have an overseas marketing consultant, if you have trade show expenses, if you have free samples, if you have overseas buyers you want to bring to Australia, there are grant subsidies available for those activities. Export market development grants are a really good example. The government's trying to incentivise a behaviour. They're trying to get people to do something that they don't otherwise do. And in this particular case, it's saying, we'll give you up to a maximum grant of $150,000 a year. So that's 300-odd thousand worth of your expenditure. I want to try and open up these markets. So there are significant benefits in exports. There are significant benefits around R&D. And if you're in the right spot with a new product, there can also be significant funds available for commercialisation.
If you're manufacturing the best Australian widget and you want to take that into Asia or China or the UK or the US, and you then spend money on travelling over there, developing a website with a US domain, doing marketing materials, going to a trade show, taking samples over and showing people, all of that expenditure fits into what's called this EMDG, Export Market Development Grant, and 50% of it.
And the best thing is you can claim the first 2 years combined. So I won't get into the detail, but because it's a limited grant, you want to make sure you're spending the right amount of money at the right time before things like export earnings tests come and throttle the grant later on. But that first claim can be 2 years combined, and there is no export earnings test, so what you spend is your eligible expenditure divided at 50%. That's your grant return.
And it's products and services, not necessarily
Correct.
just widgets.
Absolutely.
It might be that you've got particular intellectual property, we spoke about this yesterday, intellectual property or a new technology or something you're trying to develop.
That's correct.
So that sounds fairly attractive.
Thank you so much. I've just for everyone in the room, I've worked with BSI, and they're brilliant. I just wanted to ask a quick question. Is there a shopping list? You've mentioned a lot of different grants, but is there a central location that we can go to where there's just a shopping list of all the grants that we can possibly get?
Yes, absolutely. So grants.gov.au. It sounds very basic, but it's every federal government grant opportunity that is running will be on there. There's 74 ongoing opportunities on there at the moment. Equally, each state government tends to have business.state.gov.au, and within there you'll see grants and support, and there'll be a listing in there. The challenge, I guess, in the shopping list is that things open and close with fairly rapid succession, and increasingly some of the grants have a political flavour around the electoral cycle. So we'll see what we get on the other side, but those are the main areas that I would say are the best spot to be watching.